5. So here we are. I guess I should say I am Jennifer Cation Armstrong. I am the author of this book, Parks and Rec, which is about the television show Parks and Rec and not about parks and recreation departments, though those are lovely too. I'm here with Shea Serrano, who is a pop culture writer extraordinaire and a fellow super fan of Parks and Rec. Um, and I had found out that you worked with Mike Schur, who is the co-creator, I should say, of Parks and Rec, on a TV show. And I was like, we have to talk. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I met Mike a couple of years ago. Mike is the nicest guy, right? Uh, Mike is Mike is maybe the most powerful comedy showrunner in Hollywood. Like show you could think of, he has done and was a part of, and whatever. You never get that sense when you're talking to him, though. Like so you could see in my office, I got like all this movie stuff and TV stuff all around me. I've got over here, I've got like a poster of the movie Bloodsport, which I love, Desperado, which I love, Blood In, Blood Out, like all this stuff that I love, right? And when I went to meet Mike the first time, I had no idea who he was. I just walked. They were the agents. My agents just said, "Hey, go. You're gonna go talk to this guy about this show idea you have." I said, "Okay, cool." And I walked in, and the first thing I said was, "Oh shit, it's Mose from The Office. Like that's crazy, cool, right?" And because I didn't know. And then I sat down, and in his office, it was like a poster of Parks and Rec, and a poster of The Good Place, and a poster of whatever, like just all of these posters on it. And I was like, oh, cool. He also has posters of stuff that he loves in his office, like I do. And I didn't realize until afterward that he did those shows, Brooklyn Nine. I was like, what the? And you never got that sense from him. He never mentions it. He never brings it up other than to say like, here's why I think this might be a good idea because of this or that. And yeah, he's the best.
He really, really is. So, I mean, I know that you love Parks and Rec. I want to ask. I know it's a big question, but why do you love Parks and Rec so much?
I love Parks and Rec because I tend to find myself pulled toward TV shows that when you watch them, you feel a little bit better about the world, right? Parks and Rec, Abbott Elementary, um,
Mm.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, The Office, like those sorts of shows. You turn it on and you just feel good. I'm like for 22 minutes, I don't have to worry about like a character on the screen that I care about getting murdered or something terrible happening. Like 22 minutes is just some jokes and some sort of redeeming storyline and whatever. And so that's part of it. You just feel good, but also to be able to do that and not feel like it's candy coated, to be able to do that and be funny and like a real
Yes.
undeniable way. Like it's an incredibly funny show. Like it just does all of the stuff I want a TV show to do.
Yeah, I that's the part that always gets me is that it's pretty sweet and it gets like sort of sappier as it goes, really. But it's really funny, which is not they make it look easy, but it's not.
Yeah, it really isn't. I have like in my algorithm all of these Parks and Rec bloopers, like if I'm scrolling on
Oh,
Instagram or whatever, and even the stuff that they didn't film or put out is is hilarious, but also it's funny in an adult way, but
yes.
also you could watch it with your kids, and that's really hard to do. That's such a small runway to try to land an airplane on, and every season they're able to do it.
Yeah, it's really that's what I think the magic of Mike Schur is that, like, people think they can do it and other shows have tried, but it's just not as easy as he somehow I think it's just that's his personality, but it really, like, when you're talking about the bloopers, when I was talking to people for the book over and over again, first of all, they just kept saying they actually would, like, thank me for interviewing them. And which is so we I had to keep being like, "Stop doing that." That's partly just because 'cause they're nice, but it's also because, like, they kept saying, like, Mike at the end of our first conversation was like, "If you wanna talk more, I will." Like, I love talking about this. Like, Adam
Yeah.
Scott got on the phone and was like, "I just love talking about this time in my life," because they had such fun. And I think that's what's in those bloopers is that they're just trying to like crack each other up.
Yeah. I remember early on when Mike and I were working on Primo, and I was like, Mike, just like a heads up, I'm going to ask you 40,000 questions about Parks and Rec, because I just care about the show. So I was always asking him something, or if we were like on set shooting, I'd be asking him something, and he was explaining to me. A thing that always stuck out in my head was he said it was very important to him that all of the actors felt like protected when they were trying something out. I think like he was gonna take all the stuff that they did, and him and Dan and everybody else who's working on the show was gonna make everybody look good and funny and smart and kind. Like you should all be a little bit dumb and you should all have some wins and some losses, but ultimately you're gonna feel great. And I just remember him saying, yeah, they I wanted them all to feel protected because then I knew they would just try every single thing to be funny, and it like comes through, you know?
It really, really does. Do you know about Philly Justice, right?
No, tell me about Philly
Oh,
Justice.
okay. Well, Philly Justice is one of my favorite stories in the book, and it has been out there a little bit. But this is they actually like they a couple of them had taken a photo together when they were doing the campaign, Leslie's campaign stuff, and they're
Mhm.
all wearing suits. And when they looked at it, they were like, "Oh, haha, we look like we're in like a legal drama." And then instead of just that being the end of it, they started being like, "Oh, it'd be called Philly Justice," and they came up with their character, their backstories, and they were like and obviously, like, Dylan McDermott would star on it, from The Practice, and then so that's like a we're still in normal territory. Then they started, like, an email chain where Adam Scott made a fake Dylan McDermott address and would, like, answer as him, and then they wrote a script for a promo and they took extra time on the set, put on wigs and other costumes, used the set. Like Nick plays like a judge. And they got Dylan McDermott to come to the set for no reason, just to shoot this promo. So like, and it exists and I have it, but it's also out there on the internet now. It's on my Instagram if people want to go to JMK Armstrong on Instagram. I put it there. But like, that's crazy. I mean, you've been on TV sets, like, it's even if you love each other, you do want to go home, or you want to rest in your trailer. Instead, these people are out there making a thing that no one's going to see until 20 years later. Um, and and no one wants and no one cares. It's just for their own enjoyment. And to
Yeah.
me, like that is such an indicator. And it is really, really funny. But also I'm still obsessed with the fact that Dylan McDermott really came. Cause like even when Catherine Hahn first told me that, I didn't believe her. And I made the producer Morgan Saget find the footage because I was like, "I can't put this in the book if that's not true," and I just don't believe that that happened. I'm not saying Catherine Hahn's a liar. I'm just saying, like, maybe I misunderstood her, and so that was like I was like, "That to me is the ultimate Parks and Rec story." Like, that's how much they love each other, that they all just made this thing to make each other laugh. That's how I see it.
Yeah, and that I think you have to have that thing happening behind the scenes for the thing that you're watching on TV to feel like, oh, these people all like each other and care about each other. And I think it's important. And so that doesn't surprise me that something like that would happen with this show.
Exactly, exactly. I do wanna say I can see the live chat going by, so if people do wanna throw questions in there, I'll try to catch them and we can answer them, but we will meanwhile keep talking, and thank you everyone for being here. Um, I wondered too if, like I know you were a middle school teacher before.
Mhm.
Um, do you think that that figures into your kind of affection for, this story about people trying to make their community better in an institution?
I think it probably less has to do specifically with being a teacher and more just I just like those sorts of stories. Like, I mentioned Abbott Elementary does the same thing where it's like, here are some people who wanna do some good.
Yeah.
And that's like a thing I just enjoy watching that. I just like it. It's fun to watch. It's like a good thing to turn on at the end of the day after you've seen 400 awful news headlines and it's just all bad and you're like, "Well, let me go to Pawnee for an hour and a half before I fall asleep, and I'll
Yes.
feel a little bit better." It's more that.
Yeah. And you can watch it over and over again.
Yeah. I'm always in the middle of a rewatch.
And Abbott is so much like that show. Like, it's so I don't see it as a ripoff, but I definitely see it as, like, the minute I watched it, I was like, "Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's."
a buddy of mine, this guy named Justin Halpern is he's an executive producer on that show. And when they were developing it, I remember him messaging me and being like, "Hey, you're gonna love this. It's like Parks and Rec but teachers." And I was like, "I'm already in. Whatever this is, I'm already in." And he was exactly right. That's exactly what it feels like.
Um, we have a question, if you could insert one character from a non-Parks and Rec show to Parks and Rec, who would it be?
Oh. uh, wait, does it have to be a comedy or can I pick from?
I think you can pick from anything. That might be
Okay.
I'm interested if it's like Tony Soprano or something.
Well, I was thinking Don Draper.
Yeah.
I want,
Well, he was in that one scene. I mean,
yeah,
John Hamm was.
that's what's making me think he popped at the very end of the show. But like a season two Don Draper just coming into the office and whatever. Like I would like to see because all the other characters are so funny. I don't think if I just get to like drop somebody in there, I don't need another funny person to try to out funny the funny people.
Yeah.
Give me a I need a straight pole. I need a
Mhm.
concrete pillar. Give me Don Draper. And I want a conversation between Leslie Knope and Don Draper between you know what I mean?
Yeah. That would be I mean, it reminds me a little even weirdly of, like, when I was talking to Nick Offerman about auditioning for Ron and all of that, that said that, like, he learned to let her kinda go crazy and the more still he could be,
Yeah.
right? So it would kinda be like that, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
And
maybe
that's
he
my
like pitching a an ad campaign to the Parks and Rec department.
precisely. I mean, like, you remember the episode when Tom pitches a vintage retro Parks and Rec thing? He could have been in competition with Tom pitching another thing as well. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Um, but the like Ron and Leslie relationship, Parks and Rec is all relationships, right? Is what the
Mhm.
show is. That's my single favorite relationship in the show is those two together.
Yes.
So if I can get another version of that with Leslie and Don Draper, yeah, I would like to see that.
Oh, Ron and Don would totally get along too.
Yeah, Ron and Don.
They'd be having their Lagavulin and, kicking back and being men.
They would, yeah, there would be an interstitial. There would be a face to camera with Ron Swanson, and he would say, "Me and Don and I hung out for 4 hours yesterday. We said two words to each other.
Yes.
It's the best relationship I've ever had with a man." Like that,
Yes.
and you know what I mean?
I love that. I love this fantasy idea. I feel like I've been thinking recently about I'm rewatching, Schitt's Creek,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I realized this time how much they're kind of the same show.
Mhm.
And a lot right? They have such the same ideas. So I'm like, I at any moment, I feel like I could imagine one of them crossing over to Parks and Rec or that like Leslie Knope could show up and be like, "I'm your new sister city
Right.
representative." Like, it would totally work because it's so sweet and funny and also about community and all of those things. But I like your idea better. I like your, like, contrast idea a
Right,
little
right,
bit
right.
better. That's really good. That's great. And we know John Hamm really gets along with those guys, so it would totally work.
Mhm.
I love it. When did you first watch?
When did I first watch Parks and Rec?
Yeah.
Oh, when it started.
Okay.
I would so I was Laramie's my wife. We were
Mhm.
living in Houston at the time, and we had, like, just moved there out of college, and it was, like, like, Thursday night NBC it was, like, comedy, you know what I mean? It was, like, that
Yeah.
block of shows when you would watch shows on TV, and so that was part of the block that we would watch because she likes the, same sort of show. She's a big fan of Schitt's Creek, by the way, but that's when we started watching it was then, and then when it, comes out on DVD later on and you're like, "Well, I gotta get the DVDs." And then it started streaming, years later, and you're like, "Well,
Right.
now it can just always be on."
Yeah.
So immediately from the, like, start of it is when I went into it, you know?
Were you like, what did you think when it first started? Because I remember watching when it first started, and the first season's not the greatest part of it.
Right.
Like, were you into it from the beginning anyway?
Yeah, I was into it pretty early on because I was coming out of The Office, which I just
Mhm.
loved, and it just felt like, "Oh, this is that. This is an extension of that. Cool." And I was familiar with the first season of The Office. I think people say the first season of Parks and Rec isn't that funny. That's only if you compare it to the other seasons of Parks and Rec. Because if you take
True.
the first season of Parks and Rec versus any other TV show, you're like, "This is so far ahead of what it is." Like, the first season of The Office versus first season of Parks and Rec.
Yep.
Parks and Rec is
True.
is way up here. Like, the only difference I noticed this on, like, a rewatch maybe a year ago when I was like, I'm gonna rewatch it like I'm watching it for the first time. Not I'm gonna turn it on and just have it playing, but I'm gonna not have my phone in my hand. I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna watch the show because I know everything that happens, and now I wanna see, like, the beginning of it again. And the thing that stood out the most to me is in the first season, the first few episodes, Ron Swanson is not Ron Swanson yet, right? He's like he's like kinda like a mealyworm, like, he's afraid of the older whoever the older politician is who comes in the office, like,
Right.
he's not that guy yet. It wasn't until, like, season 2 when he really, figured that out. But even watching it now, like, seeing those things, it's just fun to pay attention. Tom wasn't who Tom eventually
Yeah.
became, and some of them were Leslie was immediately Leslie, and Andy was immediately Andy, and April was yeah, like, some of them were who they would eventually become, but yeah, I think the first season of Parks and Rec, I liked it. Um, I'm a fan of it, and here we are.
I am a nerd, so I really, really love like, one of my favorite things that we'll never get to see again probably is, like, the network arc, right? Watching something before your eyes become what it's supposed to be, kind
Right.
of like, I love that. It's I because you can see what they did. You're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, you understand, like, the weak points." Like, Ron was wearing a suit and tie
Right, right, right.
in those early episodes, and they had this sort of disastrous, audience testing thing that happened with them pretty early on their pilot, and it's funny to see because it's like no one they keep saying, like, "There's no men in this show that are interested." Like, you need more, like which you rarely see in audience testing, by the way. But usually there's plenty of male characters to grab onto, but, like, they're and it's, like, shocking when you know that Ron's there, but I think you're right that he wasn't really anything yet. So
Yeah.
we were only working with him and Mark Brendanawicz, alas. Um,
Mhm.
the dearly departed Mark Brendanawicz after season 2, and all the audience feedback was like, "We need a man in here who, like, is and doing
Yeah.
something." So that's really true, but you're also right that, like, I mean, we should all be so lucky to, like, write a, first season that's like that.
Mm.
Even like you said, and also people were then comparing it to The Office at its peak, which was what was happening right then, was The Office was like the thing and Parks was just starting, so people were comparing the 2 a lot. So I think it suffered a little from that as well at the moment.
There's a comment in the little chat right now from
Yes.
Chob Runner, and it says, "The Greg Pikitis episode was the moment Parks and Rec became Parks and Rec."
Mm,
I love thinking about this specific idea for TV shows. When did the show become the show? And
agreed.
I'm curious when that because I have a specific moment in my head of for me when Parks and Rec became Parks and Rec. I'm curious if you have that, like, just off the without any research in front of you
I
at
mean,
all.
I know I have 2. I have,
Okay,
like, a bump up and another bump up in my head.
okay.
The first is the final episode of the first season. So that's,
Mhm,
rock show. So that's when Andy has his rock show,
mhm.
and they bring everybody together in the club. It's out I think getting outside of the office a little bit, but mostly it's about bringing them all together in a social situation, which they hadn't done a lot of. And then we get the pit. Andy sings the song "The Pit." It's the first time we're getting original music, which I think is so key on this show. They kinda let Andy be Andy for the first time, and that's when he's improving the band names, all the different band names he's had.
Yeah.
And that's when, like, Andy and I almost said April, Andy and Anne break up, and kind of, like, you get the feeling of, like, "Oh, we can go somewhere now." Like, we're starting to, like, get somewhere. And my second big explosion moment to me is the final 2 episodes of season 2 when, Rob Lowe and Adam Scott show up. To me, that's when it's like, holy crap, we didn't know we were missing these two people. Now that they're here, we have become the show.
Yeah, okay, so I have a very similar, I guess, experience, but it's definitely when Rob Lowe and Adam Scott show up. Specifically, it's when they're at the club and they invite the Adam Scott character to the club, 'cause then that's when the show goes for me. That's when the show goes, the thing that's gonna make it special is we're gonna show you here that everybody here cares about everybody else, and we're bringing a new person. You're gonna get to watch us bring a new person into that thing, right? And I think once they did that, it just sort of unlocked, everything.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway,
Yeah.
shout out Chaw Bronner. That's a great one.
I love this is part of what I was talking about is I love that kind of like and it's so crazy to me like seeing those when those guys join how you're like I said you're like no one knew no one could have known the mystery ingredient was these two people.
Right.
Minute they show up you're like oh whoa and I think from the beginning we kind of get that this romance is going to start and
Mhm.
I am extraordinarily invested in this romance. Like
Yeah.
I've rewatched it multiple times. Every time there's a part of me that's like, "What if they don't get together this time?" I'm like, so there's parts where I'm so terrified that they're not gonna be together, like, I'm so into it. I just and I mean, I think Adam Scott is an extraordinary actor. I mean, they
Mhm.
both are, um, Amy Poehler's wonderful as well. I just think he's like an underrated leading man. He brings chemistry with him. To
Yeah.
right? Like, and he's so little a little bit under the radar. He's like a guy anyone could know. I feel like I've dated him because he's a regular-ish guy, but then he can, like, turn it on, and I don't know, I find, that moment when he in flu season, at the end of flu season, when she
Yeah,
kisses
yeah, yeah.
and then he does the talking head and says, like, "That's Michael Jordan, that's Leslie Knope." Like, I still get I still get talking about it. I just I they sell me on that romance so, so hard. I love a romance between 2 people who get each other, and, like, he sees her the way no one else does, and I just love
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Ugh,
All the
ugh.
stuff that annoys everybody else about her is, like, just makes him fall in love with
That's
her.
it.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You're totally right. Even that first episode he's in, they go out for beers
Mhm.
to kinda, like, clear the air or whatever. It's this first or second episode, and he says, like, "So you're gonna run for office, right?" And it's the first time anyone's said that out
Yeah.
loud on the show, and it's the first time anyone has taken her dreams seriously, and I love that because to me, that is the most romantic thing you could do.
And then so this is the thing I really love about this show, also about Mike specifically, is that he's able to, like, sort of forecast moments. So you mentioned that when he says that, this is the first time that anybody has verbalized this idea that she has had about herself to her in a, like, non-sarcastic way, just a totally genuine, like, I see this, right? And so they have that. They set that up early on, season 2, boom, and then they pay it off, like, 4 seasons later when he gives her the button, and he
Yes.
and it's like, "Oh, like, this is what you talked about 4 years ago." Like, it's so good. Those little all of those little things are just able to weave in.
Oh.
Genius. Genius stuff.
I think Mike is such a romantic,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I mean, he loves his wife, from what I can tell. I don't know them personally, but just I can tell when he talks about her, and I can tell the way he does romance that, like and I think romance is really hard to do. Most people
Mhm.
can't do it, especially on TV. That's why everybody's defaulted to, like, will they, won't they? And instead, he was able to do this, like, extremely and I love it's so funny that almost everyone on Parks and Rec, like, he cannot stop himself. By the time the show is over, it's almost like a
Yeah,
race.
they've all
How fast can everyone get through it before we end this thing? And he did tell me that, like, one of his favorite activities with the writers was essentially to just start going like, "Okay, let's think about Donna. Who's, like, the
Mhm.
right match for Donna? And, like, let's map it out," which I don't know if I've ever heard people talk about that before, like, that he really wanted I mean, Ron is a great example, right? He's a late breaking romance. It's like, we have to figure out the opposite of the Tammys. But still somebody who's gonna push his buttons by having, like, messy children, right?
Mhm.
So that's it's just I love his romances, even if he does a lot of them, even if he may go overboard at times. So,
Yeah, he's so
um,
good.
I'm looking at comments here. Leslie's writing and competency also increased so much in season 2 once Ben showed up. I totally agree and started believing her because he saw her as she was. I totally agree with that. I think they knew. Like I know he said he really started itching for somebody for her, and that's if you guys remember season 2 is like kind of that messy like Justin Theroux shows up and she
Mhm.
dates him for a little while. The Louis CK romance, Dave the police guy, which is, like, fine. Not exactly, like, chemistry burning off the screen or anything like that.
Yeah,
But, you know, but I think he really did set out, and that was why they hired Adam Scott, was, like, specifically to be this guy.
yeah, and he plays opposite of her so perfect because she's the reason the show works, right? Like, if you don't cast that character right, or if Amy Poehler can't do what she does with her, none of the other stuff works. She's the pillar. So when you bring in somebody who's gonna be like her romantic partner, you have to have a character who could stand on his own, but also you have to have a character who will stand with Leslie without putting his shoulder in front of her. You know
Mhm,
what I mean? I think
mhm.
that's super important. Adam Scott, as you mentioned, has just such a deft touch with any of the like you see him in that, you see him in the Good Place as a demon,
Yeah, he can
you
do
see him
anything.
in Severance. Like he always knows how to get close to where he needs to go without going too. You go one step too far and it all falls apart, and he never goes the one step too far. It's really a really enjoyable actor.
He's so, so good, and I you can even catch him doing similar, like, romantic, moves on Severance. He, like, does a thing where he, like, sweeps her, like, across the hallway and pins
Mhm.
her against in the hallway, and I was like, "Oh, he did that before to Leslie, and it works then Works every time. I see what you're doing." One of my favorite things that somebody said to me when, I was researching the book was, that this is very Nick Offerman, but Nick said they had originally Nick and Adam had read for what, became the Mark Brendanawicz role, which is a wild 3 people to be reading for the same role, but that's fine, and he said something like, he's like, "Well, when you're going into read for what's billed as a romantic lead, the last thing you wanna do is see Adam Scott in there, the most adorable, otter man." So what he said, and I was like, "That is wildly accurate." Um, but, even he knew that, and he was like, "No, this guy has secret superpowers here that I cannot compete with." Um, what was it like for you working with Mike on your show? I need to hear about this.
It was an extremely positive experience. Again, he has made, so much of this TV stuff that I love. So it was very easy to just sort of fall in line behind him and say and, like, listen to everything that he said. But he's a really good, leader in the room because what he does is, like, if you've ever been in a writer's room before, for anybody who's watching, there's usually, like, 8 other writers, plus a script coordinator, plus a writer's assistant, plus Mike.
Mhm.
And so it was like that was the makeup of the room. And immediately what he does, which is so smart, is he, like, pitches an idea himself. Somebody else will come in and, like, adjust it, and he won't get territorial, he'll just be like, "Oh, that's really good. Let's" like what you're saying, "Let's map that out. Let's chase that down
Mhm.
for a little bit." And he discards the thing that he came up with first, which was already a really good idea, but, like, let's talk through it. And so, when you watch the guy who went from Saturday Night Live to The Office to Parks and Rec to Brooklyn Nine-Nine to The Good Place to like, when you watch that guy go, "I'm not gonna have any ego about any of this," it makes it impossible for anybody else in the room to have an ego about anything. You know what I
Interest
mean?
Yeah.
And so he does that. That's like the first thing that I noticed that he does. And he goes like, "So we're gonna establish this is gonna be the tone of the room. The best joke always wins. It doesn't matter
Mm.
who it comes from. Best joke, best idea is always gonna win." So he does that, and then he goes, "Okay, now here's how I come up with here's how I map out, here's how I break down a story. I do this and I do this and I do this and I answer this question and this question and this question. And so he teaches you how to do that.
Yeah.
And then so now you're able to take a story that, you know, most people would stop it at 4 and he goes to 6. Like there's always an extra thing with Mike that you're not expecting, an extra joke, an extra story beat, an extra whatever. And that's the Mike Schur special ingredient. He just will like push it further. And there's no way that anybody else can do it exactly the way that he does it, but he gets you used to going, "Oh, that's a pretty good end point. But what about one more thing? How can we go what's the unexpected part here?"
Mm.
And so, you know, he's doing like there's no ego. Here's how we break a story. Here's how we go a little further than anybody's expecting. And here's how we tie everything together at the end. Like everything has to have a purpose and a reason. And well, like he'll just always say one or two little things that you've never heard, but as soon as you hear them, you know you're never going to forget them. Like I remember in one of the things he was talking about, what should have happened is at some point we should be able to take a script, erase every name from there, and then you read a line and you should know who says that line. Like if you saw a Parks and Rec script without any names in there and a person said or whatever, you go, "Oh, that's Ron Swanson, he said that."
Yes.
And that's Tom, and that's Don. Like you should like when you get to that level is when stuff starts to really feel special. So just being around somebody who's like holistically approaching everything, but can also teach everybody all the stuff he knows. It's like it's that's a really hard thing to find in a leader. It's a really you don't come across that very often. Usually, if somebody's really good at something, they don't know how to explain how to be good at it.
Yes.
And I like he just was a very generous, very gracious dude.
It must I mean, that must be so nice to have that if you wanna go do other TV work in the future.
And that's the whole point of when he like helps out with a thing because him helping me do a TV show does not benefit him at all. Like,
Right.
all it does is add more work to his plate, more burden that he has to carry. But he, like I remember when we first started, he pulled me aside and he was like, we're gonna put you through the we being you mentioned Morgan Sackett, who's his producing partner, and his guy
Mhm,
David Miner.
mhm.
Those 3 guys, that's like the triumvirate. But they're like, "We're gonna put you through showrunner training camp. We're gonna teach you how to do all of this stuff so that you can go off and do it on your own." And that's exactly what happened. Like, you just
Oh,
go and you ask 1,000 questions, they answer 1,000 questions, it doesn't matter when or how you're asking them. And then they're like, "Okay, now you go do it." And then they bring in a new crop of people, then they do it again. And, there's like basketball coaches have coaching trees
yeah.
when you're like, "Oh, Mitch Johnson was under Greg Popovich, and Greg Popovich," like, they have that, going on there. It's really impressive. It's really, like, special to be a part of it,
Yeah.
even for, for however long you get to be, like, in his orbit or their orbit. It's all good. It's all good.
Not everybody does that. In fact, I would say maybe
No,
most people don't do that.
most people do not do that. Most people are very territorial, and they're like, I'm gonna help you if it helps me, and that's the only reason I'm gonna," you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, it doesn't
totally, totally. Morgan Sackett is the best.
he's hilarious. He is so
He
funny.
he is like the guy who makes everything happen. Like, every time I
Yes.
would ask a question, including, like, I was talking about Philly Justice, and I was like, "Where is this footage?" Everyone was like, "Ask Morgan." And lo and behold, I asked him, and, like, within 24 hours, somehow he digs it up. I don't know where, but he's the one who got them to go to Europe on, like, no money to shoot
Mhm.
work. So, like, they went all these places and had no budget, and that was totally 'cause of Morgan, so
Yeah, he's a wizard with all of that stuff. I remember my, like, Morgan Saga story from when we were shooting Primo was we were shooting the show, and then we got to the like, we had an 8 episode first season order, and we got to, like, season or episode 6, and then I was like, "Oh, man, we should do, like" how a show ends and then there's an extra 20 seconds at the end, a bonus scene? We
right.
should have done that. And I told the line producer, this guy named Mark, "Mark, I wanna do that. Can we do that?" And he was like, "No, it's too late. We don't have any money." And I was like, "Well, that sucks." Then I called Morgan and I was like, "Morgan, I wanna do this. Can we do this?" And he was like, "I'll figure it out." And then, like, 2 days later, we were shooting all the stuff. And that's just what he does. He just, like, solves every problem. He's also extremely tall. He's my tallest friend, and and I don't know why that like helps, but he's very tall and he's very funny.
Maybe he can intimidate people with his height into doing what he wants. I'm not sure, but
That,
I'm not
that
sure that that's what it is. But
you know
he's
what they do is so funny to me is if you watch the shows, they'll like sneak little nods into each other in there. Like in Parks and Rec. This is a super small thing, but in Parks and Rec, they do an establishing shot of like an apartment tower, and it's just called and the name and it says a name on it, and it just says Sackett Towers. And I'm
yes.
like that. You know what I mean? It's like all little stuff like that. Like that's great.
Yes. No, they do. They do a lot of that, and sometimes they'll be in them. I know, like, Mike and maybe Dean and or Morgan were in, like, the Paris scenes. They're,
Right.
like, behind in back in the cafe, like, they like to do that kind of thing, so
Yeah. And there was the episode at the when Genuine shows up for the first
Mhm.
time, I believe.
Mhm.
But they're all in I think they're like all in the back kitchen of Tom's Bistro, and it's like a
Mhm.
group of people standing there. And one of the people in the back is this woman named Lauren, who was like the NBC executive.
Mhm.
But I met her when we were doing Primo because then she came and did that as well. But it's just like once you start to know all the background stuff, you see it in there. It's just so cool. It's very cool.
It really is. Oh, we have a question that just went by. I felt so seen by this as a lifer, small city Midwesterner. How did the window into the slice of Americana feel for those big city folk? Um, well, as a person who has been a big city folk some of the time, but also grew up in a small Midwestern town, I have this, and having talked to a lot of people who made the show, I can tell you that I think a lot of us have at least some part of our lives that, like, relates to this. How do you feel about that, Shay?
I feel like watching it, it just makes it seem like I would like to live there. You know what I mean? As ridiculous as it is and as silly as all this stuff is that happens, if you get the small town feel right, you just think, that could be a fun place to live. I think another example, this is like, left of field, but in Napoleon Dynamite,
Mhm.
a small town in, I think, like Preston, Idaho or something like that. But it's the same thing. They didn't have anything in the town, but it just looked like I would like to live there. That seems like a warm place to live where I wouldn't have to worry about the rest of the world. I don't know. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I agree. It's in fact, if you live in a big city, it might even be more comforting in a way, right? Because it's like it's the thing you don't have, and it's the world you want. It's sort of similar to Schitt's Creek in this way. But I also did make a point of asking both behind the scenes and in front of the camera people when I was researching my book if they had a connection in their past, and it was funny to see how many of them, like
Mhm.
most of them, grew up in what they interpreted as, and of course there are varying levels of this. Mike Schur grew up in a town in Connecticut that he said he was like, "Oh, we had an Eagleton, right? We had this other town that we were
Right.
jealous of." And then when I told my editor that, she was like, "Well, I have news for him. His town was our Eagle." So, like, none of you grew up in a small town, but many of them did. I mean, Amy said she grew up in Massachusetts and would, like, help her parents campaign for local people. Nick grew up a couple towns over from me in the far-flung southwest suburbs of Chicago, we learned. And he grew up in a place called Manuka. It especially back in the day, was, like, quite small. It was a farm town. And Mike kind of based it on his experience. There's people who grew up in Canada who, of course, like, felt very close to this. So, like, a weird number for people who were all in Hollywood when they made this, a large percentage had some sense. I think even if you just grew up in a suburb, which is I grew up in a Chicago suburb, and this felt incredibly relevant to me. And now I live in a place called New Paltz, in upstate New York, and it is so much because it's only 7,000 people. Everyone knows everyone, and has taken a lot of getting used to, having been in New York City for 20 years. I'm like,
I
"Right,
imagine
don't
so.
don't talk about other people to people. You never know. They're gonna be like, 'Oh, I'm married to her,' when I like, 'My chiropractor sucks.'" Like, "Oh, well, let me tell you." But I think a lot of us either have either want it or, like, feel like
Right.
we grew up with some version of it at some point. So it I love how specific it is too. I love when shows are like, this is what this place, it's not just, I mean, there's so many shows that were Chicago, New York, LA, right? And so to have like, we are a mid-sized town in a mid-sized state, like the
Mhm.
most Midwestern thing you could possibly do. As a Midwesterner, I really enjoy seeing that. So, someone is asking, didn't all the background characters get backstories because the writers got drunk and wrote the wiki themselves as a bit? Is that real? I'm not entirely sure that is just not a story I've uncovered, but I can't prove it's not true. But I do know a couple things. One is just Mike is obsessed with like, you know, characters having backstories. I think of like, what's his name? Dennis Feinstein,
Mhm.
who, his real name is, Dante Fierro, but he changed it because it's more exotic and Pawnee to be named Dennis Feinstein. Like those kinds of things. And then another huge part of this that I discovered was that they did that book. Do you remember how there was like Leslie wrote a book
Mhm.
about Pawnee, and then they published the book in real life.
Yeah.
And if you get that book, that is what informs a lot of those wikis. Because I looked up Joan Calamezzo's and I was like, what is all of this background? Like, is this really no, because there's all this stuff about how she was like an aerobics instructor in the 80s and like stuff that totally tracks, but where I was like, and then if you look at the book is extremely detailed in this manner. And they worked with the guy who kind of ghost wrote the book for it to be as, consistent with the show as possible. So those are my understandings. I don't know if you have any other insights.
I do not.
Okay. You didn't pester Mike to that level of like, why was Jonah an 80s aerobics instructor?
I did not get that far into it
I am
to that.
curious, like what you mentioned asking him about stuff, asking him about Parks and Rec while you were working together. Is there anything that you like stands out to you that you remember like asking him and talking to him about?
I had a lot of questions uh, about Leslie. That's my favorite character in the show. So I was just, like, curious how they came up with that character, why they did why they were making the decisions they were making.
Mm.
Was it because somebody was telling them to, or was it because they thought this is the best way to go about it? And over the course of asking the same question 4 or 5 times, I remember him eventually explaining to me, we were talking about Ron Swanson and the bit in Parks and Rec of him, like, loving doing puzzles,
Mhm.
right? And he's explaining the original version of that was that he hated it. He was, like, so bothered that he had to be helping Ben solve this thing, and he was like, "Yeah, well, that was that like, how we started it," but then we just realized, well, it's so much more fun if a person loves something than if they hates it, right? Than if they hate it. And that just stuck out in my head so much, and then once I had that in there, then it was like, "Oh, that's why all of the characters work, because they're, like, all chasing a thing that they love."
Mhm.
Even if it's not it doesn't have to specifically be Parks and Rec, but, like, the Tom character, for example, he just wants to be a mogul of some sort, so he's always chasing this thing that he loves rather than being made to do things he doesn't want to do. And, the April character who is the would seemingly be the most pessimistic character in the show, she's still like, the core value of her is, like, she just wants to do a thing that she loves.
Yes.
And when I started, like, once he said that and I started watching the show that way, oh, I get what's happening here,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? That was like a that one always stands out to me.
That's a really, really good one. That's, like, gonna stick with me now too. That's just such an interesting, I'm thinking of now, like, that makes me think of Ben making, like, Cones of Dunshire
Exactly,
or even
exactly.
his claymation. Like, the times even when he has his depression projects, they're, like, passion projects.
Yeah.
That's
All of the stuff, every memorable thing from the show was because somebody loved something. And
yes.
then, it's never, I was forced to do a thing I didn't wanna do.
That is different from a lot of other shows too.
Yeah.
Like, more cynical shows are kind of all about that to a large extent. We
Mhm.
have more questions. I really wish we could see Leslie Knope meet Zoran Memdani. Yes. Uh, She would have a Biden-sized crush on him, I agree. What do you think that episode would look like? What do you think?
Oh, I think it would be very similar to like when she met Hillary Clinton for the first
Mm,
time and she just could barely even get anything out, or when she met Michelle Obama. Like they do such a good job of just like positioning Leslie as a certain type of character
yes,
that anytime she meets a hero of hers, she just has that big-eyed, full-tooth smile and is just like a maniac, just like a
yes.
lovable I think the same thing would happen there. He would show up and be like the coolest guy and the nicest guy, and she would weird him out, and he'd be like, "Okay, see you later," and that'd be it. You know what I mean?
When she meets Biden, it is truly one of my favorite things that I
Yeah.
would say that Amy Poehler has ever, you know what I mean? Because that's, you are aware a little more in that moment of like, "Oh my god, like, he's really Joe Biden. He's really the
Mhm.
vice president," and they're, like, in his office, and she still, like, completely goes for the most awkward improv. Like, she tries to kiss him, like, does all this stuff him out, and it's just, like, so weirdly uncomfortable and sweet and everything at the same time, which is exactly Parks and Rec. And I wonder too, like, I mean, I'm trying to, if somehow she was coming back now and meeting Mamdani, I feel like she would be a little more, oh, somebody just said it, that she'd be more like a proud mom. Yeah, like if because he is significantly younger than she is, of course.
Mhm.
But she'd probably still find a way. I think she'd start out as a proud mom and then like still find a way to be weird in the end,
Yeah.
like go a little too far for the photo op or something. But he is very, I mean, I've seen this. This is not an original idea, but he's very Leslie Knope.
Mhm.
This man, I follow him on social media and I'm like, how does this man have time for all of this? How is
Right?
he doing all of these things? And then like getting them on social media. It's incredible. And I love seeing that spirit and seeing her spirit live on. I really want to know if he's watched Parks and Rec. So far I've not.
He absolutely has.
He has to have, right? Like
I'm certain of it.
when would he have time? Not now. Oh, somebody did, oh, that the same person who was asking about the, side characters, that yes, they did make a Lurpus family with extra backstories about nitrous. You are correct. If you really wanna dive deep on the Lurpus family in Parks and Rec, check out the IMDb and the wikis. It's a wild ride. The Lurpus family goes far deeper than you realize among the side characters on part, and it's a lot of, like, the people that the writers would play as, like, a one-line character or whatever, but I highly recommend that. Oh, someone is asking what is Mona Lisa's core value? I'm
Oh,
not sure.
chaos. Chaos is her
You're
core
right, you're
value.
right. That's good.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. You're right about that.
Yeah.
Maybe that whole family, is kind of that's they are incredible. It is really true. How do you think Ron Swanson would react to the current political debate? I feel like it would break his brain the way the Tammys do. What do you think?
Yeah, he would hate all of this. He would hate
Yeah.
every single part of it.
Yeah.
Uh, it seems pretty clear. There's nothing he likes more or likes less than government overreach, and
Mm.
that's where we are right now. And he would hate it all.
That's a really good point. That's really true. I mean, I asked Mike, and I know I was not the first or the last to ask him. And he said, you know, I don't think he wouldn't vote. He said very definitively he wouldn't vote for Trump,
Mm,
because he hates liars.
yeah.
And so he's like, even if he was just like writing in Johnny Cash or something, that's, you know, he would not be voting for this guy, which I agree. And also, he doesn't like chaos. He doesn't like all like a bunch of noise and silliness.
Mhm.
So that would probably, it'd be really, I mean, genuinely interesting. But Mike also said he's thanks God every day that he did not have to make choices from here. They weirdly, I mean, it is crazy to me, like the way they came on the first year of Obama's term and they ended like months before Trump came down the escalator.
Mhm.
Like they just right in there and that was it. And then they never had to deal with it. So
Thank God. Thank
thank
God.
goodness. And by the time Trump was in office, he was making good place, which I believe he did see as something of a statement.
I was at the White House the day that Trump arrived
Oh,
there.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like a it was this crazy sort of scenario where the Cleveland Cavaliers had won the championship, and they always do a thing when the team goes to the White House.
Right.
And they normally they would do it like at the beginning of the next year, but they were trying to get in there before Trump did. They wanted to go meet with
Got it.
Obama instead of Trump.
Got
So
it.
they were there, and I was there to cover that. That's why I was there.
Sure.
And and but I just remember being there. Obama's up there doing his Obama thing, and but then Trump showed up, and it was like a just this like a trash cloud comes comes over the White House. Everything was just immediately awful and terrible, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be bad, guys. This is gonna be real bad."
The
And no,
skies
no.
just darken, like,
Yeah,
no
it was
care.
so strange.
Oh, that is a crazy experience to have had, though. Oh
Yeah,
my
it really
god.
was. And I was super pumped to go. So the way that it ended up happening was they had, whenever they do those like a team comes to the White House, the president gives a speech and he usually tells some jokes.
Mhm.
And so the Obama people reached out and asked me to write some jokes for them for the thing. And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that, but like how much do y'all pay?" And they said, "Oh, we don't pay anything. You just get to write jokes for the president." And I was like, I don't
No.
wanna do that. No, thank you." And they're like, what about you can come up here and like meet him?"
Mm,
And I was like, "Well, that's a fair trade. Me and
yeah.
Laramie, I'm gonna fly up there. We're gonna go meet President Obama." So I wrote some jokes, and that's how we ended up there. The funniest thing is they said, "You're not allowed to tell people that you wrote these jokes for him. They gotta be his jokes." I was like, "I'm gonna tell every person I meet
Oh,
that I
yes.
got like,
Your
you're
obit is
crazy."
gonna be like, Shea Serrano, who definitely wrote jokes for President Obama once. Like, that is happening. Did he use any of them?
He did, he used one, and I was so excited.
What
I
was it?
immediately turned to Laramie. He made a joke. Okay, so there was this, like, thing that was happening after the Cavs won the championship where J.R. Smith was going around everywhere without a shirt on. And so, the joke, very PG joke was like, "J.R. Smith's here, I'm happy that you came, and also I'm happy that your shirt came with you." Something like that.
Nice.
And he said that one, and I was like, we're sitting in the, like, on the lawn, and I just put my hands on my head, and I was like, He said my things." He said and the guy who, like, booked me to do it told me, he's like, "If he uses one, when he says it, like, to hear your words come out of his mouth, you're gonna freak out." And I was
Yeah.
like, "I'm not gonna freak out," and then I freaked
Yep.
out.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I could see that. I would too. That's really cool. I also love that they were, like, rushing to get there so that they could meet Obama.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
That is an amazing whole story. That is perfect. I think we should end there. That was a great story. I'm gonna hold up my book one more time and say thank you to everyone for joining us.
Yes.
I am Jennifer Cation Armstrong, and I wrote this book about Parks and Rec. Please check it out. It is available wherever books are sold. And my Substack is hosting this Ministry of Pop Culture. Please join us there as well if you want to. I'm sure we'll be writing and talking more about Parks and Rec, among other things. But this was so great and such a pleasure and honor to talk to you. I did not even know about your secret Obama connection when we booked this. So 'cause this is like if Parks and Rec is anything, it's an Obama show, right? So
Yeah.
it's perfect, perfect ending. Thank you so much to everyone, and I hope to see you around, and you can always contact me if you have more Parks and Rec questions. I love talking about it. It brings me great joy. So thank you so much, Shay.
Alright. See ya.
Bye.